chosen one. Don't scroll past this. This is about you and something you already felt but couldn't explain. Because the countdown didn't just start, it's already been running. Stay here for a second. Something shifted before you even clicked this. You felt it, didn't you? Not loud, not obvious, but real. Like something moved behind the scenes of your life and you couldn't quite name it. And here's the part that's been bothering you. Why does it feel like you missed something? Not a small thing, not just a moment, something important, something meant for you. Listen carefully, because this is where it begins to make sense. There was a sign, not the kind everyone sees, not something posted, announced, or explained. It was subtle, quiet, almost invisible to anyone who wasn't meant to notice. But you felt it. And that's why this feeling won't leave you alone. That strange mix of curiosity and discomfort, like you're behind on something no one told you about. But here's what you didn't see. You didn't miss the sign. You were never supposed to catch it the way you think. Because the countdown was never meant to be obvious. It was designed to awaken you slowly. And that's why everything in your life has been shifting in ways you can't fully explain. Think about it. The distance you felt from people lately, the sudden loss of interest in things that once mattered, the way certain conversations now feel empty, almost pointless. That's not random, that's alignment. You are changing, and not everyone is meant to change with you. But wait, there's something deeper here. Why now? Why this feeling at this exact moment in your life? Because the countdown doesn't begin with time. It begins with awareness. And yours just activated. That's why things feel accelerated. That's why your emotions feel sharper. That's why your intuition has been louder than ever. You're not imagining it. You're remembering something you've always known, but were never ready to face. You are not like the others. And you've tried to ignore that, haven't you? Tried to fit in. Tried to stay quiet. Tried to convince yourself that you're overthinking. But deep down you knew you've always felt slightly out of place, not broken, just different. And here's the truth most people will never admit to you. They couldn't see you clearly, and that was the point. Because if they had, they would have tried to define you, limit you, shape you into something smaller than what you are. But your path doesn't work like that. Your path requires isolation, confusion, moments where you question everything. Because that's how awareness sharpens, that's how vision forms. But let's go back to that feeling, that sense that you missed something. What if I told you that feeling itself was the sign, not the event, not the moment, the feeling? That pull inside you, that quiet urgency, that sense that something is unfolding without your permission, that's the signal. And most people ignore it. They scroll past it, distract themselves, numb it. But you didn't. You stopped. You've been feeling the shift, like something is quietly changing inside you. Comment 777 Amen if you know this isn't random. Stay connected with Born into Light, because this journey was never meant to be walked alone. Even if you don't fully understand why, you stopped. And that changes everything. Because now you're aware. And once awareness begins, the countdown accelerates. This is where things start to feel uncomfortable. You may notice people pulling away. Or maybe you're the one pulling back. Old habits don't feel right anymore. Certain environments drain you faster than before. And you might not have words for it yet. But something inside you is rejecting what no longer aligns. That's not loss. That's refinement. You weren't rejected, you were redirected. Read that again in your mind, because this part matters. Every delay you faced, every closed door, every moment where things didn't work out was not random. It was protection. It was timing. It was timing. It was the countdown adjusting itself, waiting for you to reach this level of awareness. But here's where most people break. Right here. They feel the shift and they panic. They try to go back to comfort, back to familiarity, back to who they used to be. But that version of you doesn't exist anymore, and trying to return to it will only create more confusion, because you're not meant to go back. You're meant to step forward into something you can't fully see yet. And I know that's uncomfortable, because clarity feels safe. And right now, things feel uncertain. But listen carefully, uncertainty is not a sign that you're lost. It's a sign that you're moving beyond what you were conditioned to understand. And that's where transformation begins. But let me ask you something. Have you noticed how certain thoughts have been repeating lately? Not random thoughts, specific ones about your purpose, your direction, your life. Almost like something is trying to get your attention. That's not coincidence. That's alignment trying to break through. And every time you ignore it, that feeling gets stronger, more persistent, more undeniable, until eventually you can't ignore it anymore. And that moment is where the countdown reaches a critical point. Because once you fully see it, you can't unsee it. And your life begins to change whether you're ready or not. This is why your isolation had a purpose. It wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Time away from noise, time away from influence, time away from expectations, so you could finally hear your own inner signal. Because before this, you were surrounded by too many voices, too many opinions, too many distractions, and your truth was buried underneath all of it. But now, the noise is fading, and your awareness is rising, and that's why you feel this intensity, this pressure, this sense that something is building. Because it is. The countdown is not about an ending, it's about a shift, a transition, a moment where your identity begins to change. Not forced, not sudden, but undeniable. And you're standing right at the edge of it. That's why this feels so personal. Because it is. This was never meant for everyone. This is for the ones who feel it, the ones who can't ignore it anymore, the ones who know, even without proof, that something bigger is unfolding, and that includes you. Now here's the part that ties everything together. The sign you thought you missed was never behind you. It's in front of you. It's been showing up as discomfort, as restlessness, as that quiet voice that refuses to go silent. And now you see it, now you understand. Nothing is falling apart, everything is aligning, and the countdown is not something to fear. It's something you've been moving toward your entire life, and the moment you accept that, everything shifts, not outside, not all at once. Inside, quietly, but permanently. You won't wake up tomorrow as a different person. That's not how this works. It's slower than that, more precise. Like something inside you starts rearranging piece by piece. And at first you won't even notice it clearly. But you'll feel it, in your reactions, in your silence, in the things you no longer tolerate. Wait, this part matters, because this is where most people get confused. They expect a sign to look like clarity. But the real sign feels like disruption. Like something is being taken from you before you understand why. And that's exactly what's been happening. Connections shifting, priorities dissolving, certain doors closing without explanation. It felt wrong, it felt unfair, but it wasn't. It was necessary, because what's coming next cannot coexist with who you used to be, and that's the part no one prepares you for, the separation, not just from people, from versions of yourself. The one who stayed quiet, the one who settled, the one who kept waiting for permission, that version is fading. And you can feel it slipping, can't you? Not dramatically, subtly, like you're outgrowing something you once depended on. But here's the contradiction. You're not becoming someone new. You're becoming someone you've always been, underneath everything else. And that realization, it's both freeing and terrifying, because now there's no excuse, no more hiding behind confusion, no more pretending you don't feel it. You do, and it's getting stronger. That pull, that quiet urgency, It's sharper now, more direct, almost like it's asking something from you. But not loudly, never loudly, because this isn't pressure, it's invitation. And here's what you didn't expect. You still have a choice. The countdown doesn't force you. It reveals you. It shows you exactly where you stand, without lying to you. And that's why this moment feels heavier than the others, because now you're aware enough to see the pattern. Look back, not at the events, at the timing, how certain things ended right before something else began, how moments of loss were followed by unexpected clarity, how every time you thought you were falling behind, something redirected you. That's not coincidence, that's alignment, adjusting. But wait, there's something even deeper hidden in that. Why did it feel like delay? Why did it feel like you were being held back? Because you were, not as punishment, as protection. You weren't ready before, not emotionally, not mentally, not energetically, and if things had happened sooner, you would have misunderstood them, misused them, or worse, walked away from them. So everything slowed down, everything stretched, everything felt late, but it wasn't late, it was exact. And now you're standing in the moment everything was leading to, this one, right here, and you can feel it building, that pressure again, but this time it's different. It's not confusion, it's awareness turning into responsibility. Because once you see the pattern, you're expected to move differently. And that's where the real shift begins, not in what happens to you, in how you respond to it. But here's the part that's still hidden. What exactly are you stepping into? Why all this preparation? Why the isolation, the redirection, the delay? It's not random, it's not general, it's specific to you. And that's why it couldn't be rushed. Because what's ahead requires a version of you that doesn't hesitate the way you used to. A version that trusts without needing proof. A version that acts even when it's uncomfortable. And you're not fully there yet. But you're closer than you've ever been. That's the truth you've been avoiding. Not that you missed something, but that you're about to face something. Something that will confirm everything you've been feeling. And when that moment comes, you won't have time to question it. You'll have to recognize it instantly. That's why this awareness matters, because it prepares your perception, sharpens your instincts. So when the next sign appears, you don't doubt it, you move. But here's the shift. The next sign won't look like a sign. It will look like a decision, a simple moment, easy to ignore, easy to overthink. But that's the test. Not whether you see it, whether you trust yourself enough to act on it. And that's where everything changes. Because for the first time, it won't be about waiting. It will be about choosing. And most people hesitate there. They feel it, but they pause. They overanalyze. They look for confirmation. And in doing that, they miss it again. But you're not here by accident. You've been brought to this exact level of awareness for a reason. So when that moment arrives, you don't freeze, you don't shrink, you don't question your own signal, you follow it, even if it doesn't make sense yet, because that's how alignment works. It reveals the path, one step at a time, not all at once. And if you demand full clarity before moving, you'll stay exactly where you are, but something inside you already knows that. That's why this feels so intense, because deep down, you're aware of what's being asked of you. You just haven't said yes yet. And that hesitation, that's the only thing standing between where you are and what's been waiting for you. Not time, not circumstances, not other people, just that moment of decision. And it's closer than you think, closer than it's ever been. That's why the countdown feels faster now, because it is. Not in seconds, in awareness. And once it reaches that point, there's no going back to how things were. Only forward, only deeper, only into the truth you can no longer ignore. And this is where it becomes real, not a feeling anymore, not just awareness, a crossing point. You've been standing near it for a while now, circling it, sensing it, but not stepping into it. Because stepping in means something irreversible, not dramatic on the outside. But inside, everything rearranges. Listen closely. The reason it feels so intense right now is because you're no longer being prepared. You're being positioned. There's a difference. Preparation teaches you. Positioning places you. And you've already been placed closer than you think. That's why things around you feel strangely quiet, not peaceful, paused, like something is holding its breath. But here's what most people misunderstand. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is alignment locking into place. And you're inside that moment, right now. Which means the next movement won't come from outside. It will come from you. That's the shift. And it's subtle. So subtle. You might miss it again. Not because it's hidden, because it doesn't look important. It won't feel like a breakthrough. It won't feel like a big opportunity. It will feel ordinary, small, almost dismissible. But wait, that's exactly how it passes unnoticed. Because you're still expecting something bigger, something obvious, something that confirms itself. But that's not how this works. The more aligned the moment, the less it needs to prove itself. And this next moment, it won't prove anything. It will simply appear, and your reaction to it, that's everything. Now here's the contradiction you weren't expecting. You've been looking for the right time. But the right time has been waiting for you, not the other way around. Let that settle. Because it changes everything. You're not late. You're not behind. You've been holding the timing without realizing it. And that realization, it removes every excuse. Because now it's not about waiting anymore. It's about recognition. Do you see it when it arrives, or do you hesitate? Do you trust what you feel, or do you override it? That's the real test, and it's closer than it seems. You can almost feel it approaching, can't you? That subtle pressure again, but sharper this time, more direct, like something is narrowing down to a single point. That's not random, that's convergence. Everything you've been through, every delay, every shift, every quiet moment is leading to one decision. Not many, one. And here's what's unsettling. You won't be able to prepare for it. Because preparation time is over. You're already inside the moment. That's why your instincts feel louder. Why your thoughts feel more precise. Why distractions don't hold you the same way anymore. Something in you is focusing, tightening, almost like your awareness is being pulled towards something specific. But it's not fully visible yet. Not clearly. Just enough to feel. Just enough to know something is about to surface. And when it does, you'll recognize it instantly. Not logically, internally. Like a quiet confirmation that doesn't need explanation. And that's where it gets uncomfortable again. Because recognition removes doubt, but it also removes delay. Once you know, you have to choose. And choice is where everything either opens or closes. There's no middle there. No pause, no later, only movement. And here's the part that's been hidden from you this whole time. You're not being asked to be ready. You're being asked to be willing. There's a difference. Read that again in your mind, because readiness comes from certainty. Willingness comes from trust. And you don't have full certainty right now. You feel that. That's why part of you is still holding back, still observing, still waiting for something clearer. But clarity won't come first. Movement does. That's the order. And that's what makes this moment so rare. Because most people never reach this point. They feel the pull, but they never act on it. They stay in the loop. Endless awareness, no decision, no shift. And eventually the signal fades. But yours didn't. Yours got stronger, more precise, more personal, which means one thing. You're not meant to stay where you are. You're meant to move. Soon, very soon. That's why everything feels compressed, like time isn't stretching anymore. It's narrowing. And when time narrows, decisions become unavoidable. You'll feel it. A moment that doesn't wait. A moment that doesn't wait. A moment that doesn't explain itself. It just appears and expects something from you. And when it does, you'll remember this feeling. This exact awareness. This quiet knowing that's been building inside you. And you'll understand this was it. This was the point you were being brought to. Not later, not someday. Now someday. Now. And what you do in that moment will define everything that comes after. Not your past, not your circumstances, that one response, that one step, that one choice you either make or avoid, and you already know which way you're leaning. You felt it. You've seen it in flashes. You've tried to ignore it, but it keeps returning. Stronger each time, closer each time. Until now, there's almost no distance left. Just that final space between knowing and acting. And that space is disappearing. You can feel it tightening now. Not around you, through you. Like something is closing in, not to trap you, but to remove every place you used to hide. Because hiding isn't an option anymore. Not after what you've seen. Not after what you've felt. There's a weight to this moment now. Not heavy, but undeniable. And it's doing something specific. It's stripping away your ability to pretend. Pretend you don't know. Pretend you don't feel it. Pretend you still need more time. But here's the shift you didn't expect. You don't need more time. Time needs your decision. That's why everything feels like it's pressing closer. Not aggressively. Precisely. As if every path you could escape into is quietly closing, and you're being guided, not pushed, toward one direction. One response. One moment that will ask everything from you without saying a word. Wait, notice this. The closer you get to it, the quieter your mind becomes. That constant noise fading, that overthinking slowing down, not because things are clearer, because something deeper is taking control. Your instinct, and instinct doesn't explain itself. It doesn't argue. It doesn't negotiate. It knows immediately. That's why this next moment will feel so strange, because for the first time, you won't need to think. You'll just know, and that knowing will feel almost too simple, too direct, almost like you'll question it just because it came so easily. But that's the trap, not the moment itself. Your doubt about it, because your mind has been trained to complicate what is true, to second-guess what is clear, to delay what is certain. But this time, there won't be enough noise left to hide behind. That's the design, not to confuse you, to expose you to yourself. And here's the contradiction that shifts everything again. You've been trying to become ready, but this moment is what makes you ready, not before it, through it. That's why it couldn't come earlier. That's why everything had to unfold the way it did. So when this arrives, you're not prepared. You're aligned. There's a difference. Preparation looks for guarantees. Alignment moves without them. And you're standing right at that edge now. You can feel it in your body. That tension, that awareness, that strange calm mixed with intensity. Like standing before something you can't see clearly, but somehow trust completely. And here's where it deepens. Because this isn't just about one decision. It never was. That moment, it opens something. Something that's been waiting behind it. Something bigger. But you don't get access to it directly. Only through that first step. That's why it feels so small on the surface. So easy to dismiss. Because if it looked as big as it truly is, you'd hesitate, and hesitation would cost you the alignment. So it arrives quietly, almost hidden in plain sight, wrapped in normalcy, but carrying something irreversible. And when you step into it, you won't feel a celebration. You'll feel a shift, immediate, internal, like something locks into place, and suddenly Everything that felt uncertain begins to make sense without explanation. Not all at once, but enough. Enough to realize you were never lost, you were being led. But wait, there's still something you haven't fully seen, something that's been present this entire time, something you felt but haven't named yet, and it's connected to why this moment matters so much. Why this decision feels heavier than any other. It's not just about direction, it's about identity, who you are when you choose, not before, during. Because in that moment, you're not thinking about who you were, you're acting as who you are becoming. And that action, it defines something, it marks something, it signals something, not to others, to you, that you've crossed, that you shifted, that you stopped waiting for permission and started moving from knowing. That's the real transformation, not visible, but irreversible. And once that happens, the countdown you thought was ending reveals what it was always leading to. Not an ending, an initiation, but not the kind you expect. No announcement, no confirmation, just a quiet realization that you've stepped into something you can't step back out of. And strangely, you won't want to, because for the first time, everything inside you will feel aligned with the direction you're moving. No resistance, no confusion, just clarity in motion. And that's when you'll understand why it had to feel like you missed it, why it had to feel delayed, why it had to feel uncertain. Because if it didn't, you wouldn't have become the version of you who recognized this moment now. And now, there's almost nothing left between you and it. No distractions left strong enough, no doubts left convincing enough. Just that final internal shift from observing to acting. And it's happening right now, closer than a thought, closer than a decision, closer than you're ready to admit. Because the moment you stop observing it is the moment you step into it. And that moment is already here, not arriving, not approaching. Here, which means something very specific. You're no longer waiting for it. You're inside it. That changes the pressure. Before, it felt like anticipation. Now, it feels like exposure. Because being inside the moment means one thing. There's nothing left between you and your response. No buffer, no delay. Just you and what you do next. And this is where it gets quiet again. Not peaceful, focused. Like everything unnecessary is being stripped away so only one thing remains visible. Your choice. But look closer, it doesn't look like a big choice. That's the part that keeps slipping past you. It looks small, almost too simple, and that's why it's dangerous. Because simplicity doesn't trigger urgency, it whispers, and whispers are easy to ignore. But not this time. Something in you won't let you dismiss it. You've tried, you've delayed, you've told yourself later. But the moment didn't move. It stayed, waiting, unchanging, until now. Because now, you can't pretend it's not there. And here's the shift you didn't see coming. The moment is not testing your ability. It's testing your honesty, not what you can do, what you will admit to yourself. Because deep down, you already know what this is asking of you. You've known from the beginning, you just kept it at a distance, softened it, avoided naming it fully. But now there's no distance left, and that truth, it's rising. Clearer, sharper, harder to ignore. Listen, what if the reason this feels so intense is not because it's new, but because it's finally undeniable? That changes everything, because now it's not about discovering something. It's about accepting something, and acceptance, that's where resistance ends. But here's the contradiction. Acceptance doesn't feel like relief at first. It feels like responsibility. Because the moment you accept it, you remove every excuse you had before. No more "I didn't know," no more "I wasn't sure," just awareness and action. And that's why part of you is still holding tension. Not fear of failure, fear of stepping into something real, Because once it's real, you can't go back to questioning it. You can't shrink it down again. You can't unsee it. And that's exactly where you are, right on that edge. But here's what's about to shift. You think you're about to make a decision, but that's not what's actually happening. You're about to reveal one. There's a difference, because the decision has already been forming inside you. Quietly, across every moment that led here, every feeling, every realization, every time something inside you said, "This isn't it, there's more." Those weren't random thoughts, they were pieces, and now they've come together, not fully visible, but complete enough to act. And here's the part you haven't fully seen yet. The action itself, it's not what changes your life, it's what confirms it. Confirms what you've already become. And once that confirmation happens, something else opens. Not instantly, but undeniably. A path that wasn't visible before. Not because it wasn't there, because you weren't aligned with it yet. But now you are. Which means the moment you move, even slightly, things will begin to respond, not loudly, not dramatically, but clearly. And you'll notice it, in ways that feel almost too precise to be coincidence. But wait, this is where most people misunderstand again. They think the response comes after the action. But sometimes the response is already waiting. You just haven't triggered it yet. That's why this feels so close, so immediate. Because the moment you shift, everything else will recognize it, like a signal finally being received. And that's when it becomes undeniable, not to others, to you, that you've crossed into something different. Something that was always meant for you, but only accessible through this moment. This exact one. And here's the truth you've been circling this entire time. You didn't miss the sign. You delayed your response to it. That's it. Not failure, not loss, just hesitation. And now, there's no space left for hesitation, because the moment isn't repeating, it's holding. For you, right now. And the longer you stay still, the louder it becomes. Not in sound, in feeling, until eventually it becomes impossible to ignore. And that's where you are. Right before that point, where ignoring it is no longer an option, and responding to it changes everything. Not later, immediately. But not in the way you expect. Because the change won't be visible at first. It will be internal. A shift in certainty. A shift in direction. A shift in direction. A shift in how you see yourself. And once that shifts, everything else begins to follow. Naturally, without force, without struggle. Because alignment doesn't fight, it flows. And you're right there, at the exact point where flow begins. All that's left is that final step you've been holding back. That one moment of honesty, that one quiet decision, that one movement you've already felt forming inside you. And when you finally allow it, you'll realize something that changes everything. You were never waiting for the moment. The moment was waiting for you. And now it has you. Not loosely, not temporarily, fully. This is the part where everything becomes clear without needing words. No more signs. No more signs. No more searching. Just knowing. And in that knowing, you move. Not perfectly, not fearlessly, but truthfully, and that's all it ever required. Because the countdown was never about time running out. It was about you running out of ways to avoid who you are. And now, there's nothing left to hide behind. No delay left to lean on. Just you and the step you already feel. So take it, not because you're ready, because you are. And the moment you do, everything that once felt uncertain finally aligns, not as a reward, as a recognition that you didn't miss anything. You arrived exactly when you were meant to, and this time you didn't look away, you didn't miss the sign, you became aware of it. Subscribe if you're ready to walk this path fully. Because you're not just watching this, you're living it.